Good morning, radio listeners, and everybody watching on Facebook Live or watching on YouTube in the past or future. My name's Ryan Trick, and this is the Morning Buzz, Monday, June 8th at 10 a.m. It's going to be a good morning. My name's Ryan Trick. As I said, in studio with me is my wonderful co-host.
I'm
pointing
Marino.
down.
Amanda Marino.
And then that way
Yes,
for me.
Mr. Jeremy Wall.
Exactly. And we got some more fun stories for you today. Of course, we will be going back over the 10 days of protesting over George Floyd, but we will also be talking about New Jersey reopening, New York reopening, toxic toads, and Indiana Jones, but like in real life. It's kind of crazy. Stay tuned if you want to listen. But of course, before we get to that, as I said, it is the Morning Buzz. We are a news show. That is what I have been told. I thought this was a pop culture / techno music show, but alas, no, we are a news show. Thus, Jeremy Wall is in the station with our newscast. Jeremy, what's going on in the world?
Ryan, it's been 2 weeks since George Floyd's death, and today there will be a public viewing in Houston, Texas. ABC News is reporting that the viewing will take place from 12 to 6 p.m. at the Fountain of Praise Church, while Democratic presidential candidate and former Vice President Joe Biden will meet with the Floyd family ahead of the funeral. The viewing is one of many honoring Floyd, along with dozens of protests to help end police brutality. Schools, the University of Minnesota, and now the Minneapolis Town Council are defunding the city's police department. According to CNN, 9 members of the city's council disclosed they plan to defund and dismantle it following George Floyd's death. Council President Lisa Bender is looking to shift the funding of the police department toward community strategies. CNN is also reporting that New Zealand is lifting almost all of its COVID-19 restrictions after reporting no new cases. The country hasn't had anyone receiving treatment in hospital for COVID-19 for the past 12 days, and the last case of community transmission has not occurred in 40 days. It also has not had any new positive cases in 17 days. Schools and workplaces will reopen tomorrow, and there will be no limitations on gatherings and domestic travel. A New York family is demanding answers after their son was shot at a traffic stop by an NJ state trooper. NJ.com is reporting that 28-year-old Maurice Gordon was waiting with a white NJ state trooper last month after his car wouldn't restart when the state trooper shot him. Gordon was a chemistry student and Uber Eats driver who was not armed when he was with the state trooper. Gordon's mother and sister, who live in England, have been staying in a hotel in Poughkeepsie, New York, following his death. The name of the officer who shot Gordon has not been released. J.K. Rowling is facing backlash following tweets she made considered transphobic. According to E! News, the Harry Potter author shared a global health opinion article called "Creating a More Equal Post-COVID-19 World for People Who Menstruate," only to reveal her confusion with the people who menstruate part. Rowling tweeted, I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Woman, wimpin, woman. Celebrities such as Brad Walsh, Patty Harrison, Kim Petras, among others, went after the author, criticizing her tweets. Despite the criticism, Rowling continued expressing her viewpoint. Let's get to the forecast. Beautiful day ahead of us with sunny skies and a high of 80. Tomorrow, temps rise of highs in the high 80s and more sunshine. Finally, hump day, a rise of highs in the high 80s and sun in clouds. Beautiful week to hit the beach. I don't know about you guys, but I think I'm going to definitely get my toes in the sand this week.
Exactly. And with beaches and parks opening back up, as long as people are staying safe and 6 feet apart, you can. I know that boardwalks are also reopening, but without any games or rides or food or entertainment, arcades or et cetera, et
Or
cetera.
anything but the beach. You can go on the beach.
You can go on the beach and you can walk and pretend like you're having fun at the boardwalk, which is all that matters, I guess. But yeah, no, it has been beautiful weather out. Like yesterday, it was just unbelievably nice out, and I'm just happy that we're finally seeing summer weather, to be honest.
And you can even play the Queen song, having a good time, having
Exactly.
a good time.
And you gotta do the Ryan dance and be excited.
Gotta do the Ryan dance. She always makes fun of the Ryan dance. It's the dance. It is the two reasons why I always do that dance. One is because it is the dance I can do while sitting, and two, it is literally the only dance I can do without looking at without looking like, I don't know, like a dad supervising a prom or something. So
I don't know. It still kind of looks like a dad supervising a prom, though.
fair enough. Well, I guess moving on into our first topic. So it has been 10 days since Black Lives Matter protests sparked by the death of George Floyd at the hand of police began here in the U.S. So I guess the question a lot of people have been asking is, what has protesting accomplished so far? Well, within just 10 days of sustained protests, here's a list of all the changes and all the impacts that it's had. Um, and more, really. This isn't even all the changes. This is just like a sample. So, first and foremost, Minneapolis has banned the use of chokeholds for police officers, which is, if you listened to me on the Wednesday buzz last week, I had a very passionate conversation about that. Awesome. Good for Minneapolis. Charges are upgraded against Officer Chauvin, and his accomplices are arrested and charged. Dallas has adopted a duty to intervene rule that now requires officers to stop other cops who are engaging in an inappropriate use of force. Also, New Jersey's Attorney General said the state will update its use of force guidelines for the first time in 2 decades. Further on, LA City Council introduces a motion to reduce LAPD's $1.8 billion operating budget. And MBTA in Boston agrees to stop using public buses to transport police officers to protests, which is nice. And then, of course, police brutality has been captured on cameras, leads to near immediate suspensions and firings of officers in several cities across the U.S. Buffalo, Fort Lauderdale, many others. Furthermore, the street in front of the White House is renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza. Military forces begin to withdraw from D.C. and much more. And now there's also the stuff that's kind of hard to measure, things that people see on social media, things that you can't really quantify with a statistic. The really difficult public and private conversations that are happening about race and privilege are starting to happen, and we're seeing them happen more.
I think that's actually, like, before we continue with this list,
Mhm.
which is really great, I think that's actually the biggest thing I've been seeing, and I think
Yeah.
it's really important. Like, I remember seeing, I think you guys talked about it at the Buzz on Thursday last week, of the Sesame Street show. If you guys like heard about that, they were doing Elmo has this new late night show that they're doing, and I think there's like a whole episode now talking about like race and talking about that. And I think that's an important thing. I know we saw that Nickelodeon did like an 8 minutes and 46 seconds for George Floyd and a lot of that kind of stuff. So I think it's like an interesting thing that I don't know, like, we're just always like, we're bringing in this topic now to children and stuff, and a lot of children don't necessarily understand, but it begins with teaching. So I think that's a really
Yeah.
important step.
I think it has
Absolutely.
always been a topic that people know about, but kind of brush over for some reason.
Yeah, or don't know
And
how to approach it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this on Wednesday last week, where the question I think a lot of people have been asking now is, you know, why do we brush over this topic? And it's great to see that now people aren't. And like you said, we're seeing it on media. We're also seeing it on like social media, TV shows,
Mhm.
um, really everywhere. And it's fantastic.
I've also seen that like a lot of like people like African Americans that have like a platform like have been saying like here's a little lecture, take it, use it with your kids, like, and that was like really cool for me to see. I was like, that's awesome, like they're using their platform to reach out to the people that like can teach and educate their kids. So
Exactly. That's another thing. That's another really good thing that's come out of these protests is the realizations that some white people are coming to about racism and the role of policing in this country. It's good to see that like I said earlier, cops are now starting to have to take responsibility for their actions. I mean,
yeah.
I think my favorite thing in that first initial list has to be the duty to intervene. Um,
Mhm.
the rule that requires officers to stop other cops who are engaging in inappropriate use of behavior. Personally, I think that that should not just be a Dallas rule. I mean, props to you, Dallas, but my home state of Texas. But
I think we're going to start seeing a lot, like, obviously we are seeing changes
I
between
think we are
states,
going
but
to
I
see
think
a
we're
lot
going
of
to
it.
see a lot more of those laws as like one state does it. Like, so like it's happening in Dallas. So that means Texas is probably going to like take that in. And then, other states are going to probably follow suit. So that would be good to, if that happens.
Exactly, and I really hope it does. Also, a huge thing that we've been seeing on social media is the internal battles exploding within organizations over issues that have been simmering or ignored for a long time. Some organizations are probably going to end as a result of this, but I do think that others are going to be changed and probably for the better, or might be replaced with something that is actually more efficient with its workers, something stronger or faster. So, and also, major record labels have pledged millions of dollars, millions, towards social justice and anti-racist initiatives across the globe. Sony and Warner Bros. Specifically have pledged hundreds of millions of dollars specifically towards these efforts. And then we have Nike and other like tech companies are donating millions to organizations. It's just fantastic to see all these companies. I mean, now, of course, there's always going to be those companies who are donating just to hop on the bandwagon and say, hey, we support it too. But, look, despite that, I think it's fantastic that we're seeing just companies donating, period.
I think not even just companies, but also just seeing that, like, forget even donating money for a second, actually, like, starting change within something. And this is a little off topic, but like, Montclair State University. I am a theater major, as you guys know. I've gotten like 5 emails from the theater department alone about how they're trying to start change. And from the recent events, like I pulled up the email right now. They wanted to make aware to us about the Arts Activism Project. That's an opportunity in an anti-police brutality and campaign and stuff. And they want people to get involved and just doing a lot of that stuff. And they're giving opportunities. So I think that's really interesting because they know it starts in the education system of like starting change. So if we're starting it in colleges and high schools and stuff like that, I think that's an important thing. So yeah, so I think that's an important thing as well. I don't know if you guys
I
agree
mean,
with
yeah, no, I totally
it.
agree.
Like I think like with the education thing, I don't know. Like I said earlier, it's like you have to start somewhere. So I don't know. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean,
And it
that's the biggest thing that we've been I think that we've been seeing, and I pointed this out before, where I'm used to be a huge, or well, I used to be a psych major, and I'm still a huge psych buff, and a huge thing that we've seen is like little kids they don't they can't tell the difference between really a white person and a black person. They just see them as a person.
mhm.
They don't really understand the difference. Um,
It
so
depends how old they are.
yeah, but I mean, like when they're little. But the thing that I've been wondering is, where do we go wrong in the education system where these differences are being taught? Because if it's like just initially they don't understand the difference, where's it coming
Mhm.
in where it's like
Yeah.
where these differences are being taught? And I think we're starting to see that, like you said, Amanda, where we're getting these children's shows and we're seeing these things in
Yeah,
education
I
that are
guess
pointing
I
out
don't know
like,
if it's like
hey, this is a problem.
like I'm almost wondering if like we do get lectures about like when we first learned about like the civil rights movement and stuff. Like I wonder if it's just something of how that's taught and how it's not really in depth. I've been seeing a lot of posts on social media, not having to do with that, but having to do with a lot of high schools are required to read To Kill a Mockingbird, and people are like, how does that like how do you like read that and then go into like you just brush over everything else and just like continue on with life like I don't know, so maybe it's just the way like, and I don't want to like call any teachers out because I'm definitely not, but I'm saying like I think like it's just sometimes maybe the way it's handled or maybe even how they were taught the particular book or the particular history section, you know what I mean, like
Yeah, no, it's true. I think we're taught about the racism that was, and we're not really focusing on how it should be now
And how it's still
and how
very
we should be
in our
changing it.
society. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people like to say it's not, and we changed, but no, it's
exactly. It
still
seems to be
here.
taught in like history classes. It's not necessarily taught in a lot of modern
Yeah.
um, topics and conversations, which I think it should be, and it's
Mhm.
awesome to see that it is. And this is also having a huge impact, like globally, by the
Mhm.
way. Those of you who don't know and who think it's just in the U.S., it's everywhere. In France, protesters marched along holding signs that said "I can't breathe" to signify both the words of Floyd, but also the last words of Amanda Traore, a 24-year-old black man who was subdued by police officers and gasped that same sentence before he died outside Paris back in 2016. The visuals that we're showing right now, for those of you who are live on Facebook, or watching on YouTube, in Germany, people gathered in multiple locations throughout Berlin to demand justice for Floyd and fight against police brutality. But also, a mural dedicated to Floyd was also spray painted on a stretch of wall in Berlin that once divided the German capital during the Cold War. Um, I mean, all I'm going to say is I don't think you need to have a college education to understand how powerful that is. Um,
I think it's just powerful in a sense that this is happening in the United States, and it's just making all way, like it's made its way across all 50 states of the United States, but then it's made its way across the globe to other parts that maybe the laws are better there, and it's still happening. They want to fight for everybody's rights because, they believe that everybody should have rights just like we do, so it's
exactly.
mhm.
And I mean, just for protests in general, people holding up signs. Here's a very short list. We have protests in Ireland, in Italy, Spain, Athens, Greece, Brussels, Denmark. People, chanting "No justice, no peace" throughout the streets of Copenhagen. Others gathering outside the U.S. embassy. I mean, it is everywhere. Up
Mhm.
in Canada, protesters were also grieving Reggie's, and I apologize for butchering this last name, Korchinski Paquette, a 29-year-old black woman who died on Wednesday after falling from her balcony during a police investigation in her building. Um, yeah, we also see people in New Zealand, roughly 2,000 people marching to the U.S. Embassy, chanting, carrying signs. And a probably one of the biggest ones on this list. In Syria, two artists created a mural depicting Floyd in the northwestern town of Binish on a wall destroyed by military planes. Um, yeah, I mean, it's everywhere, and it's important too. And I
Mhm.
think that it's awesome to see that it is everywhere because I think one of the biggest problems is we've seen it impact the U.S. You know, throughout all of these years, we've seen incidents like George Floyd, police brutality against the black people. We've seen it impact the U.S., and it makes me so happy in a way to see that these protests are going on literally everywhere.
Mhm.
Um, it's awesome. I think it's fantastic that people are finally starting to care this much
Mhm.
all over the world. I
Yeah.
was talking to my friend in Canada last night, and we were just talking about COVID and the protests going on. And she was like, "Yeah, dude, there's a protest in like my small town here the other day." I'm like, "Wait, you're in Canada?" And she's like, "Yeah, there was like a protest of like 1,000 people in my
Wow.
town." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? Like nothing to do with that part of the world, and people are caring." Because
Yeah.
it's not just parts of the world, I think that people are finally starting to realize it's not a part of the world that this impacts, it's a people.
Yeah,
It is
exactly. I
a
agree.
population of the world, which is super important,
I agree.
which is
So
awesome.
it's
Yeah,
just important to note that these were just events that have been going on around the world, and this is the resulting change, and this is why people are continuing to protest because it's change does come from protesting as much as it seems like it doesn't. This is what's already happened. So, and these are just some small changes. So
Exactly. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we will see even bigger changes to come
Mm-hmm.
in the future. But speaking of change, that's a segue. Hi, New York. How's it going? I know we make fun of New York all the time on this show. That's because we're from New Jersey. And for those of you who aren't from New
Haha.
York or New Jersey, that's just our relationship. Is it Taylor ham? Is it pork roll? Which has better drivers?
That's literally a New Jersey thing, though.
Whatever. The truth is, neither New York nor New Jersey have good drivers, but I'm going to say New Jersey because I'm from
I
New
feel
Jersey.
like, and when you're out of the state, like everybody just makes fun of people's
Oh,
driving.
yeah, absolutely.
It's like you're from Pennsylvania, you're a bad driver. Like it's like
Yeah.
we say it everywhere.
It's
You know what I mean?
especially New York, New Jersey, though.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like whenever I see a New York driver on the road or someone with New York plates, for whatever reason, I just get annoyed.
Oh, me
Even if
too.
they're not, even if they're driving perfectly, I just get a little annoyed.
I'm
But
like, oh,
also,
those New York drivers.
yeah, those New York drivers, what are you doing? Get off my road. But no, New York is finally starting to reopen after 3 just really long and hard months. The one thing that before I continue, the one thing that I've been really annoyed about with the COVID is I think a lot of media, a lot of commercials and whatnot, are kind of like brushing over the topic like, man, the world's crazy these days. Anyway, buy a car. Like, no, I want a commercial to come out and say, like, hey, this pandemic thing really kind of just is not great and we all hate it. Buy a car.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be a much better commercial for me. But anyways, after 3 like just really honestly long, hard months, especially for New York, which was the hardest hit location by COVID in the U.S., New York is finally starting to open back up today. Um,
Nice
First,
to
they got
hear.
hit with the devastating waves of COVID, then the multitude of marches and protests over the death of George Floyd. The city that never sleeps is doing their best to kind of get back to normal, or I guess at least close to normal. Um,
Somewhat. Yeah.
yeah. So they said with the virus temporarily in check, non-essential businesses were actually cleared to reopen for delivery and pickup, while construction, manufacturing, and wholesalers also received the go-ahead to reopen, which is great. I mean, New York is finally starting to open back up a little. And we're starting to see this a little bit in New Jersey too, coming up, I believe, on the 14th. Um,
Yeah,
Outdoor
we
dining
have
is
the outdoor
opening,
dining. Yeah.
outdoor dining and non essential shopping. And also, 400,000 workers are back to work today, not in offices, but just back to work. So, I mean, you want
It's
to talk
still
about like an
progress.
impact on the economy? That is so awesome. As someone
Mhm.
whose family was personally impacted by like furloughs and jobs being cut, I mean it is so nice. It is a breath of fresh air to read that, and I'll read it again. 400,000 workers are back to work today, not in offices, but they're back to work. And offices or not, I think it's awesome. And I think that we're actually going to see a lot of jobs. I think a lot of places are realizing, hey, we can work relatively efficiently in some places where we don't have to have people come into the office. Relocation fees for some bigger jobs are like crazy expensive for businesses and for companies,
I think a lot of companies are making sacrifices too. I had
Mhm.
a guest speaker come into my online summer class that I'm taking, and she said she works for like a public relations company, and she said they work in the city, and she said when this happened, instead of laying people off, they just decided to get rid of their workspace. So they like got rid of that fees that you would have to pay for like a New York City like office building, and just got rid of that so they didn't have to let go of anybody, which is great, but it's also like it's this whole new reality we're living in of like we could just work from home from a lot of jobs. So
Yeah, and it's awesome. Um, Now, personally, shout out to my former professor and the station's very own alumni, Tom Kaminsky. Um, he was reporting on traffic problems in usual problem areas up in the chopper again today after a long time of not being there. So, those of you who are interested, by the way, in a funny guy who reports on traffic um, and takes some pretty sick chopper photos on Twitter, Tom Kaminsky is he's a cool guy. I like him. He was
Tom's
my
the man.
professor. I'm a little biased. Yeah, Tom's the man. Also, New York City, like 9 other regions in the state, was required to meet 7 health-related metrics before beginning the reopening, of course. So again, they're not just reopening saying, "Hey, we're all good." I mean, these are with restrictions, and it's a slow process. But it's just good to see that this slow process is starting. New York City was the last part of the state to do so, for obvious reasons. Much of the upstate has already moved to phase
Yeah.
two,
Yeah,
which
I'd heard
allows
that.
most stores and offices and hair salons to open, with restrictions on capacity and social
It's
distancing.
because the city is just so on top of each other. Like you're just, it's like
Exactly.
like in parts of upstate, you could be kind of like more separated, and it just is easier to
Yeah.
reopen. You know.
And also, an interesting thing that I was reading about New York is, I mean, you got to think like New York just with public transportation. I mean, the subway, we were kind of hearing like, yeah, less and less people are taking the trains. Think about how many people take the subway in New York. They
Hmm.
stopped running the subways overnight in New York when
Hmm.
the pandemic happened. They couldn't fully close them down because, I mean, you're basically just, you know, screwing over, for lack of a better word, like a huge population of the city.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And there's still a
just,
lot of essential workers that were using them, and it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah,
So they couldn't fully close them down. But I mean, even closing them down overnight, if you've never been to New York and you have no idea what we're talking about, and you're like, wait, why are you taking the train at 2 in the morning? Because it's called the city that never sleeps for a reason.
hmm.
Um, yeah,
Governor
A
Cuomo.
lot of people, like get up really early, and some of them really get up like go to bed super late. So it's like it's a nice convenience that you have a subway to just like hop on and be like,
wake up at 3 in the morning, hop on the subway at 4. Yeah, a
no, yeah,
lot of
and it's
people
like,
do
and a
that.
lot of people do that to just go to like, I gotta wake up before work. I'm gonna go to the gym. You know what I mean? It's like
Yep.
one of those things, and you gotta take the subway, and it's an easy, convenient way to not like walk 50 blocks.
Yeah. Jeremy, you said something about
Yeah,
Cuomo.
Yes, Governor Cuomo even said that if you see a subway is crowded, don't get on it. Wait for the next one. But
Yeah.
I'm really curious how many people are going to abide by that rule? How many people are going to listen? How many people are going to take his advice?
yeah.
The subways are always crowded.
A lot of people have been saying that too with just like the normal trains, like NJ Transit and stuff, like to not use it unless you like absolutely have to. I got like a survey because I take the train pretty often, like in my inbox on my email that's like, hey, have you been taking the train? Have we been doing a good job? If not, like let us know what we could do better, blah 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 blah, and just asking my like opinion on everything, which I thought was interesting, how they can improve as like a company, you know.
Yeah. And it's interesting, kind of uh, back to the point of the question what you had, like how many people are actually going to abide by that. I think we can apply that question not just to the trains, we can apply that to like everywhere. I mean,
Hmm.
when the pandemic first started coming out, I would always ask people the question. People were like, oh, I really miss going to concerts and I miss going to this and that. And I agreed with them. Obviously, I'm a huge music guy. I have my own music show. I love live music. And but I would always ask people the question, if somebody said tomorrow the pandemic's over, everything's fine, here's 2 free concert tickets,
Yeah, yeah.
what are the odds of you saying yes to that
I've
concert?
literally talked about that because I had a concert to go to on May 1st. And that was like
Hmm.
already when like things were starting to like go down a little bit. Like it was still like not the greatest, obviously, because we're still in this and it's June. But
Yeah.
like it was still like coming down. And I said to my mom, because we were supposed to go to the concert together, I said, hey, like if this ended, it was like 2 weeks before. I was like, if this ended in time to go to this concert, would we go? Like if it was still gonna happen and everything. And we just both looked at each other and we're like, no, probably
Yeah,
not. Because like
exactly.
the
But
first
why?
thing,
Everything's over, and that it's that thing that's sitting in the back of people's minds now.
but
People are realizing
but
being that
also
close to so many people is dangerous.
but like not even because we were just sitting in like a big stadium where it was like we were on top of each, like we were in a general admission concert. And like general admission, if
Yeah.
you've ever been to a general admission concert, you're on top of each other. It's to the point where I've literally gone to concerts and beer has spilled near me on top of my shoes and things. Like that's how close you are to people. People push and shove to get
Oh
around you.
yeah.
And it's
Punk
not a
concerts
good,
especially.
yeah.
I've
So
been
it's
to
like it's just
punk
not a
concerts.
safe
I've been to Warped
environment.
Tour. You want to talk like general admission? People are climbing on
Yeah.
top of each other, and it
People are
is
doing
like
crowd surfing there.
exactly. And here's the thing too, not to get like weird and gross, but also like people sweat, at a concert,
No,
whatever. People
people
sweat
sweat
every day.
everywhere.
But like, you know, people sweat, you breathe heavy when you're
Uh-huh.
like, I mean, I don't know about anybody who's listening, but when I go to a concert, I mean, this is coming from someone who literally uses their voice for a living. I will blow out my vocal cords every single time I go to a concert.
Not
Why?
good,
Because
Ryan.
that's just what you do at a concert, in my
As
opinion.
the vocalist here, not
You
good.
sing until you cannot speak for 2 days. I will stand by that decision
No, I
every day of
don't.
my
I
life.
don't. I didn't say that.
But again, it's like, if that's what a lot of people do at a concert, a lot of people sing along, a lot of people just belt, in the crowd. That's also a lot of people, possibly contaminating each other. So again, it's just stuff like that where, like you said, Jeremy, how many people are actually going to abide by that? And I think a a couple people are. I think there's a good majority of people who are. But also there's going to be a majority of people who aren't. Kind of getting a little back on track. For New York, the road back will obviously be challenging. More than 885,000 jobs vanished during the outbreak, and strong gains are not expected for the city until 2022. Um, and the city budget just hemorrhaged tax revenue and is now facing like a $9 billion shortfall over the next year. Um, but uh, so even though the road back will be longer and way more challenging, I think the um, than the pandemic, I do think it'll be worth it. Kind of touching on the protests that have hit New York, because again, New York has been through two huge I don't want to say pandemics, but two huge outbreaks, an
Mhm,
outbreak of a virus and an outbreak of protesting.
mhm.
Um, which is good, but also you need to understand, not all of these protests have been peaceful. Obviously, if you've been
But it's
following the
also
news.
it's also important to note that even though the protests are still going on and whether they're peaceful or not, the you're still in a giant crowd of
Yeah,
a lot of people you don't know, and that's just that I know a lot of governors have been telling people like if you've gone to a protest, try to get tested just to be sure and stuff
just be
like that.
safe.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. This is something I'm curious about. What phase allows studio audiences back?
Not for a while, I'm
That
sure.
is, yeah, that's not for a while, but that is an interesting point you bring up because I have been noticing more and more shows are even if they have, like even shows who are back in studio, a lot of shows are just not, they don't have studio audiences.
I think it
And
depends
I've
on
noticed
like
this with sports. PGA tournament, I believe, is next weekend. So golf
I
fans,
think
ayo,
I think you
but
I think it's going
nobody's
to be a
there.
little bit Jeremy because well first of all it depends on the city obviously where it's being the filming is getting done but like I also think it depends because I think it's going to be more when like theater is able to go back, which we'll touch on later, and like when sports are allowed to have audiences back. Like I think it's going to be a lot of that because that's like mass crowds. It's like when you're allowed to have a wedding again. When are you allowed to
Yeah,
have like 100-person wedding? Like that's going to be the next. You
exactly.
know what I mean? So
Yeah. So, and I think the biggest thing, especially for New York, city, of course, that also like never sleeps. Finally, after a long time, the 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew expired this morning at 5 a.m.
Hallelujah.
The city mayor De Blasio announced he was lifting the curfew, um, which is fantastic. Also, when and this is interesting. When more than 100 workers return next week to New Lab, a tech hub in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, they will have the option of wearing a device that buzzes every time two colleagues get too close to each other, which is kind of a high tech way to enforce social distancing. And we kind of touched along this, or touched along some kind of vein of this, kind of like reminiscent of the Simpsons zapping thing, but it kind of is reminiscent of, I believe it was, I know I'm gonna get this wrong. I believe it was France, who came out with that app. They rolled out like their COVID tracking app,
mhm.
where it would basically put it on your phone and it would track people who had tested positive.
Yeah.
And if you had gotten close to them and then they had ended up testing positive, it would give you a notification saying like, hey, a few days ago, you were close to this person and they just tested positive,
Mm.
so go get yourself tested. Kind of reminds me of that. And I do think this whole contact tracing thing will be the key to reopening.
Mm.
But and now we started touching on this right before the show, and I had to stop myself because I thought this was kind of interesting. It's the real question here. So businesses are ready to reopen. I'm seeing them in my small town. I believe it's the 14th, especially here in New Jersey. Outdoor dining is reopening. A lot of other non-essential businesses. But the real question is like, are people ready to
Mm.
kind of give this a shot, come back out of quarantine? Because people have been pent up for months. It is no longer a weeks thing. It is a
Yeah,
months
I
thing.
think I think it's really just key is like we've been seeing it a lot on like Facebook and like a lot of other social media platforms that like allow people to feel ready when they feel ready. I think that's
Mhm.
really like kind of key. Like personally, if you feel comfortable going into a place, go. Like I mean, theme parks are open now, and a lot more businesses are starting to open. So it's like if you feel comfortable going into a store, great, go for it. But like I think like with me personally, I already said to my mom, I'm like, I'm not going into a store this summer unless it's like to a grocery store to pick something up. I could order everything online if I really need something. So it's like, what's the point? So I
Or
feel
have
like
you
it's just
bought to your
it's
car?
more of like
Yeah.
I'd rather like hang out with friends and try to build that up
Mhm.
again and like cuz like I know I could trust people that I associate with more than I could trust somebody that maybe like I've never met in my entire life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. You can honestly ask your friends, "Hey, have you been safe? Have you been social distancing, whatever?" And they'll hopefully give you an honest answer. Whereas,
Yeah.
you ask a stranger who gets too close to you, "Excuse me, have you been
No.
out in the past few
Well,
days?" They're gonna be like,
and I think I was telling you guys before we started the show, I was with some people yesterday and like I'm crazy, but I had like hand sanitizer on me. Like I like just kind of like kept like wiping my hands and we're just kind of like keep away. Like I know one friend of mine tried hugging me and I was like, nope.
"Yeah,
I'm like, I'm
not
sorry.
yet."
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but please no. Like,
Yeah.
and like, that's just the reality. It's like, you want to start seeing people. Like, I've even seen some of my family. I haven't like hugged and kissed them yet. Like, it's just like, it's kind of like,
It's
you
weird.
gotta wait. You gotta like wait
Yeah,
it out a little bit more.
exactly. But don't worry. We will hopefully be able to hug and kiss our family members soon. And
Hopefully.
you know, kind of going back to the whole concert venues thing.
That's a segue.
That's a segue.
Not really
Amanda's
though.
catching on.
No,
Yes,
no.
trained her well. Uh,
But not
Amanda, you brought this
really.
story up.
Yes, I did. Well, before we get into the main bit of it, last night would have been the 74th annual Tony Awards. But due to the pandemic, the show is postponed, unfortunately, for the first time in 73 years of the ceremony. This breaks my heart.
Crazy.
Um, I honestly forgot it was last night though, because like I think
Same.
no, like I think I honestly forgot because like I think I put it out of my mind. Like I knew it wasn't happening because normally I'd have friends over and we
Yeah,
watch
right?
Like
together.
popcorn,
Yeah,
chips,
we like I mean like
soda.
you can't tell I'm a
Yeah.
theater fan or anything, but like
Yeah, looking
I
at the list of playbills on her
that's
wall
not even
behind
all
her.
of them.
It's not. I
uh,
know it's not. There's no way.
but anyway, like my point is like it was just kind of very like I think I like put it out of my mind because I knew it wasn't happening. And basically right now, the Tonys have said they've been postponed, but like we don't know when because New York City theaters aren't slated to be back open until at least September 6th. But a lot of Broadway producers are kind of saying like 2021 is when we're going to be open again, which is kind of scary because I know we've talked on the buzz. Shows have already canceled like completely and just like ended. We know Frozen closed, and it's scary because I'm in a lot of theater groups on Facebook and stuff, and they're always like, so what's next? Which show's going next? Because a lot of shows weren't doing too well before the pandemic because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize they have to build back up their investment that they spent on the money I spent on the show, and if
Yeah.
they don't build that back up, that's how they start to fail and the shows leave Broadway.
But
So
Exactly.
here's the thing, though. the people that return to Broadway, the performers,
Yeah.
don't they have to rehearse everything again since
That's
it's been
the thing
months?
too. I mean, I don't
That's
know.
another problem.
I honestly personally don't know what Broadway has been doing. I know a lot of local theater companies that were like in the middle of a production that hadn't postponed their show. Like a local theater I do work with, they were supposed to put up their production of 12th Night. They ended up just are still rehearsing over Zoom. And then just like when the theaters are able to open back up, they're going to be the first show that goes back on. But like obviously they'll need a few weeks in the theater, but like they'll be like ready to go again.
Mhm.
So it's like, I don't know if some Broadway theaters, because I think at first when they thought it was only going to be like a month or two, they were like, oh, we'll keep it going over Zoom. We'll send videos. We'll do that. And like, but now that it's like past that, we don't really know, I think. But it's important to note too, I thought it was interesting to bring up the theater subject because I logged on to Facebook this morning before I came on to the show, like I normally do. And it was announced that the St. Louis Mooney Theater announced for the first time in its 102-year history, the outdoor venue has postponed its entire 2020 season lineup until the summer of 2021 due to the coronavirus. So I think this is
102 years.
102 years.
That's
And
insane.
I think a lot of us had hope for theaters like this because it was outside. Like it would just be like, you know, it's like one of those like amphitheater kind of things. Like
Yeah.
I was supposed to do a show. I was supposed to do a show this summer, and that was actually outside as well. But like hearing this, I'm kind of like, it's definitely not gonna happen now. Like because like there was like hope that it's outside, but it's because you're on top of actors and like you have to touch each other in a scene or kiss each other. Can you imagine? Like that's just you can't do it. You can separate audience members, but like you're sweating. We were talking about sweating before. You're sweating, you're kissing, you're doing whatever in a show.
You're dancing in a show, you know.
So
it's
crazy. And so in the article from Playbill.com, in April, the Mooney had postponed 2 of its 7 productions to the 2021 season. Disney and Cameron McIntosh's Mary Poppins and Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd, while hoping it to begin its season on July 20th. So they were just hoping if they pushed back a few of the shows, they could start like later, but they just know it's not going to happen. Chair Louis A. Cella of the Mooney Board said, quote, "This is the historical first and hopefully last for our beloved theater. Every member of the organization was hopeful and working on every possible option up until the moment we had to make this difficult decision. The sad reality is there is simply no way to overcome the obstacles this pandemic has presented while ensuring the safety of our audience, staff, artists, and community," end quote. So it's just it's a lot to think about. Theater, I think theater having audiences back for sports, and I also think like concerts are just like a thing of like 2021, which is kind of sad. But
it's sad to admit that, especially to say it out loud, but
no, and I know, but like the only good thing is, and I'm gonna say this, obviously this isn't good. It's sad, but I think we need to look on the bright side of this thing. Obviously it's nice to know that the theaters aren't looking for money and they're just trying to like take the safety of everybody into hand. But I think it's also important to note that like what am I trying to say? That like we also have, in the age of 2020, we have a lot of resources to us that we could use to our advantage. Like being able to be online with you guys right now and not have to be in a studio is crazy. We could talk online and we're getting broadcast everywhere that we normally would. And like, it's not the same, but it's still something. We have this technology that we have theaters putting out shows that were taped online and, you know, they're doing benefits. And I know a lot of things were happening last night for the Tonys. Concerts are being streamed like from years ago that people are bringing back up. So I think it's important to note that I know it's not the best situation, but at least we're not in an age where we don't have technology and the resources to be provided to us.
Exactly.
And so I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think that's a kind of good note to end on. You're right. It is a you know, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it really is a blessing that we live in a time like the time we live in. I mean, it is horrible that this pandemic has happened, but like man, thank you. It's happened in a time where Zoom exists.
Think about what year was the Spanish flu? Like 1918? Was that when it was?
It was 100 years ago.
Okay, so can you imagine what it was like for them that didn't have a computer streaming platforms, like things like, do you know what I mean? Like that must have been worse. And like we're blessed to live in a time where I could just go turn on Netflix after I'm done here today, or I could like, go watch theater being streamed on a platform. You know what I mean? Like I know it's not the same. Nothing will ever beat being in a venue for theater or a concert, but it's something, and I think it's something that is better than nothing.
Exactly, it is. Now, we do like to talk about animals on the show. Amanda pointed that out. I've noticed we talk about two things a lot on the Morning Buzz. We talk about food a lot. That might be partially my fault. Don't worry about it. And we talk about animals. And
I don't know. Like we have, like, I mean, not even just the Monday buzz, like Thursday buzz. During the spring semester, we were talking about the ant story.
Yeah.
I know Anabella's
Josh
probably
with
laughing
his
behind.
reptile jokes. So I don't know how else to introduce the story other than throwing it to Anabella for the picture. For those of you who are watching, I apologize. That is a cane toad. Do not pet, do not hug, do not lick. That is a reference to a weird story Anabella told us before the show. So dog killing cane toads are back as rain is beginning to draw them out. Yes, that is a giant toxic toad that has reappeared in Florida as rains are beginning to draw them back out. Florida's starting to go through hurricane season, and through these scary-looking toads, or though they are generally harmless to humans, they can be dangerous for pets. Before we continue, for those of you who are watching, I apologize. We do have a little picture of a cute little baby toad or baby frog. Look at the little boy sitting on a flower, his big eyes. I believe it is scientifically proven that things with big eyes are at least 870,000% cuter. I don't know where that fact is from. Probably from the depths of my subconscious. Don't worry about it.
It looks nice,
but
it's probably evil.
Yeah, there's a little palate cleanser
Yeah,
for you.
wait. Actually, wait. I didn't even actually talk to Jeremy about this in the pre-show. Jeremy, what do you think about frogs?
Yes. Jeremy? What is your opinion on frogs? Yay or nay?
I think frogs are cool. I like just about all animals but mice. I can't stand mice.
No,
Mice? Okay.
No, but like the frogs, they're like slimy.
But they're so cute. They have big eyes and everything.
That little one did.
A little one.
Tongue.
Yeah. Let's get that giant toxic toad up one more time. I guess for reference, if we can.
No, but like, and look, he has like the red spots, so he looks a little evil. Like he looks.
Yeah,
it's
like, true. Okay.
I just want to put a frown on him.
This toxic toad is significantly less cute.
He looks mean.
He looks upset about something. He looks like he missed his bus or something, and he's just like, woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
Ryan, he's actually upset that
the hot water heater broke.
He's actually upset that we're talking about him. That's why he's.
I apologize, Mr. Cane Toad. Again, for any visuals, you can check us out on Facebook Live or Facebook, or you check us out on YouTube. But
I just want to put a frown on that toad.
He's not very happy. For those of you who are listening, he's very frustrated.
I feel like in like a month, like Ryan's just gonna keep that image and he's just gonna send it to everybody again, just to remember the frog.
Absolutely. You have foiled my plans, Amanda.
It's okay. Then you could wait 3 months then, and you can do it.
Yeah, I'll wait a couple months.
Happy first day of school.
Happy first day of school. Here's a frog. No, anyways, so the amphibians, which average between 4 to 6 inches long, but can grow up to like 9 inches, which is weirdly large for a frog, have triangular glands behind their eyes that contain a high load of I apologize for those of you who are about to listen to these words, but that contain a high load of a milky white toxin that Amanda's face, that can kill dogs, which is crazy. If a dog bites or licks the little frog that is slow moving, it can get some of the poison gets some of the poison in its mouth. It can suffer convulsions, loss of coordination, and also cardiac arrest.
I thought gators were the only thing you had to worry about in Florida, but apparently you got to worry about these frogs.
You got to worry about much more in Florida. Gators, snakes.
No, yeah,
Snakes.
like do you ever see like those pictures like online that are like people like their gator is just chilling in their pool? Like
Oh yeah.
I saw a picture like a week
Yeah.
or two ago. There was like a gator like on top of one of those gator like inflatables.
Mm.
He
Yeah, no,
was
I
chilling
used to
on
live I used to live in Florida with my dad, and my mom used to live in Florida, and the house that she had lived in was like there was a little river stream
the
right
Yeah.
behind her house that we had a fence, and I was trimming the fence one day, and I looked over
You were
the
trimming
fence,
the fence?
or not. I was trimming the hedges by the fence. Yes, I was trimming our fence, and no, I was trimming the hedges by the fence one day, and I looked over the fence just out of curiosity. I thought I heard something back there, and the New Jersey in me, I'm like, oh, maybe it's a deer. There aren't really that many deer in Florida, but there are alligators, which I did see just chilling behind the fence, like by the stream, and I'm like, oh, I
Hi,
have a
Mr.
dog that can
Alligator.
be swallowed by that.
How old
You
were
also
you?
have a
Good
you
thing
that
we
could
have a
get
fence.
swallowed by that.
This was like 3 years ago, not even. This is like 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
Um,
I thought you moved to Jersey like a decade ago.
oh yeah, well my mom had lived in Florida because my parents were divorced. So but yeah, this was a few years ago, and it was just weird because like there are alligators everywhere in Florida, and they just chill, But they
Yeah, I
also
know, but like they could also like
dogs.
hurt
I
you.
don't recommend. Yeah, I don't recommend hugging an alligator unless you're like Bear Grylls or something.
Or Steve
I
Irwin.
still don't recommend it, But hey, live your
Maybe
life how
like
you want to.
maybe one of those little baby ones.
Yeah, maybe a little baby one if it has like a thing around its mouth and it's at like a petting zoo. Um,
Ah!
either either or. I used to feed alligators. That's a whole different story. At little like putt putt courses in Florida. Florida's weird, man. If you're ever bored, just look up weird Florida facts, or just Google the Florida
Or
man
just
because
talk
that
to
thing's still
Ryan,
relevant. Or just
apparently.
talk to me. Um,
But
anyways,
anyway,
back
speaking
to
of
the
weird
story.
things.
Oh yeah, all right. Well, anyways, real quick.
Okay, it's fine. I
This
had
is
a great
important. No, all
segue.
right. This I'll let you get back to it.
Okay.
This is an important fact I do want to give people. If you are in Florida, and poisoning of your pet was suspected, please, please, please pay attention. Write this down if you can. Write it down in your little brain memory bank. If poisoning is suspected, please use a hose to wash the dog's mouth for several minutes, running water through one side of the mouth and out the other. Taking care not to flush the water down the throat, which could further spread the poison. Again, do not make the dog drink a lot of water. Flush the mouth out. And also get to a vet as quickly as possible. So flush the mouth out for a few minutes and then get your dog to a vet. Even if you think you're good, it's just better to be safe than sorry. First, we have the murder hornets. Now we have toads. I am waiting for locusts, but that's just me. Um,
But
Man, that was
anyways,
a weird story, huh,
yeah,
Amanda?
yeah, right. Speaking of weird things,
That was
haha. Ryan, tell us about the story you found this morning.
Well, I didn't find it. This is courtesy of Anabella, our wonderful executive producer. I always like waking up to seeing weird Discord notifications, and this certainly was one. A treasure chest hidden in the Rocky Mountains was finally found. Yeah, for those of you who are watching, you can see the visuals here. It is literally a bronze treasure chest filled with gold, jewels, and other valuables worth more than $1 million, hidden about a decade ago, somewhere in the
Wow.
Rocky Mountain wilderness. Um, and it has finally been found. So,
Wonder
according
if
to
it was like
famed,
a wonder if it was like sorry I cut you off there,
no,
but
no,
like
no, that's fine.
wondering if it was like one of those things where it's like I'm gonna store this away for like when I need it one day and then
Well,
like
no. So
completely forgot.
actually, this is the interesting part. It was hidden there for people to find. So,
Oh. Like
according
a
to
good deed
famed art
thing.
and yeah, so according to like famed art and antiquities collector Forrest Fenn, who is 89, he created basically the first treasure hunt. Um, and a man who didn't want his name to be released, but was from back East Coast, located the chest actually a few days ago, and the discovery was confirmed by a photograph that the man sent him. So he created this treasure hunt, and some guy finally found it. In a statement that was released yesterday, Fenn said, quote, "It was under a canopy of stars in the lush, forested vegetation of the Rocky Mountains and had not moved from the spot where I hid it more than 10 years ago. I did not know the person who found it, but the poem in my book led him to the precise spot. So Fenn had posted clues to the treasure's whereabouts online and in a 24-line poem that was published in his 2010 autobiography called The Thrill of the Chase. So shout out to you, real life Indiana Jones. This guy literally found $1 million worth of treasure. Yeah, I mean, like, cue the theme music. And this is a crazy search too. This search was not just like a couple people maybe searched for it and it was just sitting there, do not touch unless you are looking for it, whatever thing. I mean, this was like a huge, intense search. Hundreds of thousands of people have hunted in vain across remote corners of the U.S. West for the bronze chest believed to be filled with gold coins, jewels, and other valuable items. And actually, many quit their jobs to dedicate themselves to the search, and others depleted their life savings looking for it. Sadly, at least 4 people actually died searching for it, including a snowmobiler in March. And in 2017, police in northern New Mexico recovered the body of a Colorado pastor who disappeared while searching for the treasure. So this was a huge thing that people were searching for. I mean, this was not, you see these shows on Discovery, people going to locations and searching for, I don't know, lost gold or sunken ships. But Fenn, who did lived in Santa Fe, said he packed and repacked his treasure chest for more than a decade, sprinkling in gold dust, adding hundreds of rare coins and gold nuggets. Pre-Columbian animal figures were in, prehistoric mirrors of hammered gold, ancient Chinese faces carved from jade, and antique jewelry with rubies and emeralds. I mean, it's literally like a cache from Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So I would love to interview this guy. First and foremost, like, what was I want to know what was his like desire to
Should
do
be
this.
like, I'm bored in quarantine. I'm gonna go like dig up some treasure.
Yeah, exactly. I got nothing else to do. I guess I'll wander the Rocky Mountain wilderness with a shovel and cross my fingers. Like, dude, props to this guy who found it. I think, if anything, I like to talk about weird lottery stories because you'll see these things all the time where it's like a dude found like a half torn up, lottery ticket in the trash and decided I'm gonna scan it and actually wins like $5 million. But I mean, this is not just dumb luck. I mean, this guy like found it.
Yeah.
Props to you, sir, Mr. Anonymous, and thank you for being anonymous because a lot of people are like, hey, I'm going to shout my name to the world. Look, I found $1 million. And then we hear bad stories on the news that I don't like to report on. But yeah, congrats to the real life Indiana Jones. He did say that Fenn, though, did say actually that he hid the treasure as a way to tempt people to go into the wilderness and maybe give them a chance to launch an old-fashioned adventure with and an expedition for riches, if you will. I would like to ask him if he watched the Indiana Jones movies, though.
Definitely.
I think
Definitely where he got inspiration or something.
Yeah. Temple of Doom, stuff like that. Lost Ark. I'm definitely pegging Fenn to like wear a hat, like an Indiana Jones hat or something. Maybe take a couple archaeology classes. That's just me. People asked him how he felt now that the treasure had been found, and Fenn did say, quote, I don't know. I feel halfway kind of glad and halfway kind of sad because now the chase is over. I congratulate the thousands of people who participated in the search and hope they will continue to be drawn to by the promise of other discoveries. End quote.
I think it's important to note that there's also plenty of other discoveries to be found out there. Since we mentioned Indiana Jones earlier, the Ark of the Covenant is yet to be found and is among 30 big-time treasures that have not been found yet. So
if you too would like to be a real-life Indiana Jones, don't worry, there are plenty of treasures out there for you to explore. And of course, while you're out there exploring, you can always listen to the Morning Buzz on iHeartRadio. You can listen to us watch us from YouTube or on Facebook. That was a plug
That
of
was
the
a vlog.
century. Um, that said, thank you all so much, so much for listening to today's show. Please stay safe. Please be careful and just stay informed. That's the best thing you can do. And of course,
Mhm.
you can help stay informed by tuning into the Buzz every weekday. During the summer, we are on from 10 to 11 live on 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey, and of course on iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, all that good jazz. As far as I know, I have been, in fact, Ryan Trick, joined today by
I have been Amanda Marino.
and
Jay Wall.
and huge shout out to Anabella Poland and Adam for just I call him the legendary audio ninja Adam. Um, thank you so much for keeping our boat afloat and for keeping us live on air. That said, we will see you guys tomorrow here on the Morning Buzz.